Hello, this is Mark here at Rosebud Records, and I'm here to talk about CD quality. What is CD quality? What is better? What is worse? What is lossless? What is loss? To be without it. And all that kind of thing. And how does it compare to records? How does it compare to other digital formats and streaming? So, um, CD quality kind of came around as a standard in 1979 when they invented the CD. It was Sony and Philips in cooperation with each other. Let's make a format. Let's not do this Betamax thing again. When we do digital audio, let's agree what the format's going to be. And so they did. And it was the CD. And it was kind of wonderful for the time, especially. Digital was a breakthrough. And 16 hertz, 44.1 kilohertz was the standard for the CD. Why 44.1? It's a pretty weird number. Beethoven's Fifth. They're like, what's this going to be used for? And it's like, probably classical music, you know. And so they took the longest classical piece, not the longest rock album, but the longest classical piece was Beethoven's Fifth. Clocks in about 74 minutes. They're like, we'll make them 74 minutes long, and then all the other classical music will fit on one disc, and we're all set. That's all we're going to need. And they did it. And there's someone said, wait a minute, that will make the sample rate 44.1. And they're like, no one cares about sample rates. Don't worry about it, man. Let's do it. And they did. And so that's why CDs have a weird sample rate. It's not 48, it's not 44, it's 44.1 to make them 74 minutes long. So, fast forward the 80s, the 90s. Everyone loves this crazy disc. Everyone sells their records and buys these crazy discs. And then MP3s came around. Now the MP3 was necessary because the internet was so slow at the time, and hard drives were so small that you couldn't fit you couldn't fit your music collection on your hard drive. You also couldn't email songs easily. You still can't. A full quality, CD, quality. This is 650 megabytes. It's still a challenge and you can't email it at all because email actually has a limit. But even passing these files around used to be bothersome. So they're like, what are we going to do? We'll do digital compression on them, and we'll do a little bit of analog compression too. I guess we'll kind of like mess with the sound a little bit. We'll take out, so digital compression is when you take out the useless information. So things that don't seem important, to make the file smaller. And they reduce the CD file by about a factor of 10 to make them small to be handed around. And so they did that by making for lowering the quality, and especially adding those compression artifacts that bother me like crazy. And once you hear them, you can't unhear them. And so if you haven't heard them, then don't listen to me describe them. But it's kind of these swishing sounds in the high, on the low highs, high lows. The hi-hat's a good place to go looking for it. It's just a loss of definition in certain things. It's just information is taken out, and kind of information that was decided, the engineers decided was useless. And then that was the MP3, but people loved it because it was easy to trade, easy to send around, easy to collect in a digital way to put on your phone that didn't have a lot of memory at the time. So, but it was pretty horrific, the original MP3s. And if you have, like the LimeWire, Napster era of MP3s, if you ever, run across any of these, they sound terrible. But as time went on, they figured out how to make MP3 sound less terrible. And then they came up with other, digital formats that were a little less terrible. One that has by Apple, and Apple's bombastic way of calling it, it's lossless. This thing is a third of the size, but it's exactly the thing, because they like to be like, there is no loss, there's loss and lossless, but they're pretty good. But it's not the same as CD quality. And that's unfortunate because we're talking about 1979 technology. And so now we live in a world where digital technology should be able to give us, incredibly great sounding music. And if you're talking about how music is produced and mastered, when you have a record that's remastered at 24-bit, 192 kilohertz, it sounds great. Even if it's done like that A lot of people go like, oh, records, they just make them out of the CD files anyways. These new records are just not quite. But they often are cut from digital files. It's difficult to find a record cutter who really wants to cut from an analog tape. And it's usually done as a labor of love because digitally is so much easier. And if you're using a 192 24-bit file, it is very high resolution, and it's enough so that it's not bothersome. It doesn't erase the analog feeling from the record when it gets put onto the record. Because what the analog does is it just kind of melts the butter into the bread. When you take a digital file and you put it on a record, it's kind of like when you took a Hollywood movie and put it on a videotape. If you filmed a videotape yourself, the video would look terrible. But if you took a Hollywood movie and copied it onto a videotape, it looked like a Hollywood movie. That's kind of the same thing as like if you take an analog and you take a digital signal and put it onto a record, the record kind of so it's a little opposite in the allegory, but the record just kind of warms it up and melts it together and kind of turns it back into analog. And if you do that at a very high sample rate, then that's fine. But as a consumer, now when Tidal came around and said, we'll be streaming CD quality files, I was like, great, sign me up. And, you know, the Pono player that Neil Young spearheaded, same thing, high quality digital, sign me up, didn't quite hit. Tidal never got, never, you know, it's one of the major streamers, but, you know, the other streamers are. So are people uninterested in high quality digital music? Maybe. So maybe people don't want to hear the difference. So we're still in a situation where the CD is essentially the highest quality digital format, especially if you're not streaming. And that's where we're at with that. CD quality is still, it's good quality compared to the other options you have. There are some high resolution CD formats that didn't quite catch on that you can still collect some things on. So if you're just crazed about that, some people upsample into their digital audio device, hoping to get some kind of headroom out of it or something like that. And that's a little CD quality is kind of what we're stuck with now in the digital world. And I hope streamers will eventually, now that the internet is a broad channel, and that you can stream things at that speed, and at that, I mean, at a speed that's satisfactory at that quality, can't we use at least CD quality? So we'll leave it at that for now. Thanks for watching my little CD rant, and check out the other videos here. Come by Rosebud Records, buy some records and CDs and tapes, all sorts of music. We love music, and we'll talk to you soon.